My name's Becca from Claritystamp here in the UK and welcome to YouTube Tuesday. Now today I'm going to be showing you this project which features designs from the Queen herself, Linda Williams, and she designed two beautiful peacock plates which I'll just show you in a sec. But what else I'm going to show you as well is how to use our framework circles and also how to do some very basic multi-needle tool work. So if I just bring in the designs I was referencing to before by our lovely Linda, we have two A5 plates here featuring this gorgeous peacock design. I think they are some of my all-time favourites. Like, I just went nuts for these when they first came out. They're just insanely beautiful. So on one plate, you've got the beautiful peacock, you've got the feather, and you've got this like feather panel sort of thing, great for borders, great for like embellishments on cards and stuff. And on the other plate she's given you lots of different elements, so feathers in various ways, this beautiful arrow which we're going to be focusing on today, and you've also got some corners here. So shall we begin? Right, so how I'm going to start off is I'm going to put my frame in, and you do that by starting with the framework circles. So I'm just going to move my black mat out the way and switch on my light wave. Now, these framework circles were an idea by our lovely Marie Morehouse, and the concept behind it is that you can essentially create even frames around your work. So you can just take, like, you could take all 9 circles and build like a huge piece with the frame. You can just take the 4 and just basically little bite-sized chunks of portrait work. It's great especially if you're just starting out or you want to practice a new technique. What you could do is just trace out some of these and just have a play around with them. So I'm going to house that in the A4 square plate mate. Now this isn't a necessity as the A4 square plate mates are big enough to use on their own. However, I do like to use it because it just makes your surface that little bit larger to attach your portrait onto. I find it a bit easier to work with. And when you get it home, you'll notice that it's in 2 halves. Don't think that's broken. The reason we've done this is because it's quite a large, substantial frame, and it'll be quite easy to damage in the post. So what we've done is we've just folded it in half, and all you do is apply your tabs to the side here, and you fold it out, and you're ready to go. Like, I've had this now for probably about a year and a half or so, and my tabs have stayed on there from day one, so it does last you a while. So I'm going to get my piece of parchment, and I'm just going to centre my circles up. Now before you start, make sure you can read the word Groovi, otherwise your tool won't be going anywhere. I've done that quite a few times when I'm just sort of bashing the portrait with my tool going, why isn't it doing anything? And then I'm like, oh yeah. So I'm just attaching this piece with my Groovi tabs, and then what I'm going to do, excellent piece of kit, this Groovi guard, I'm going to bring that into play because these are all, when Jim drew these up at the office, he drew them all so they were like exactly the same size all the way across. So when you start parching, sometimes the parchment can move a little bit. Oh, wrong tool. Bear with me just a sec. There we go, number 1 Pergamano tool. So when you start embossing, oh, tumble dryer sheet. Oh, I'm just so eager to get going. That's it with Groovi. I just love doing it. That sometimes I just rush ahead of myself. So as I was saying, all these circles are the same size around. So this circle is exactly the same size as the outer circle here. And sometimes when you emboss, you'll find the parchment can move a little bit. So the Groovi guard just helps to keep your work flat, so you get nice even circles all the way around. Now this framework range is also available in ovals, rectangles, squares. So head on to the website to check that out. Right, okay, so there we go. We have our 3 perfect circles to start off with. And if I refer you back to the project, next step for me is to put this square frame in, just to frame it all up. Can you see? So I'm going to go back to my light wave, and I'm going to switch out my circles plate for the nested square extension. This is another really useful plate of ours. There's just so many uses. There's this beautiful alphabet in the centre by our Jane Nesterenko with her frame around it as well. And it's just great if you want to create like larger pieces of work. So what I'm going to do is, oh, if I go quiet, I do apologise. I'm just trying to line it up. So what I'm trying to do, aim of the game here, is to try and get the circles round about the middle of the frame. I'm just doing it by eye. So this is the one I used. So I'm just going to shunt it along a bit. Oh, why don't you go make yourself a cup of tea? I'll just wrestle with these Groovi tabs for just 1 second. Right. She's done it. It was not cooperating with me. So what I've done is I've framed these circles within this line here. So if you follow this line all the way around, you'll see that it nicely encases the circles. So again, using my Groovi guard to keep my work flat, I'm just going to quickly whiz around. Do 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 do. And there we have it. So this is where we're up to now. So we've got our frame in. So next what I want to move on to is embossing these beautiful arrows from Linda's plate. So, oh, nearly dropped it there. Don't fling your work around, Becca. Don't do that. So I don't need this anymore and I don't need this anymore. Instead, what I'm going to bring in is my calligraphy plate mate for A5 plates. Now this comes with an absolutely beautiful font all the way around. It's just absolutely delightful. And it just houses your A5 plates perfectly. So what I want to do is, on the finished piece of work, you can see that the arrows are crossing over. So this would be one arrow and this would be the other arrow, and they're just hidden in the centre by the sentiment. So you just see them peeking out in the circles. So when I line up my work, there we go. So I want diagonally across, I want the end of the arrow in here and the front of it in here. So I'm gonna put it, that's about in the middle. I'm happy with that. Yeah, I'm happy with that. My crisscrossy. And then I'm going to attach it down. And then, same as before, using my number 1 Pergamona tool, I'm just going to get in the groove and quickly emboss this out. Alrighty then, so there we have it. So I've just finished tracing out. I've just finished tracing out the first arrow. So again, I'll show you where we're up to. So I've got the first arrow in, but you'll notice on the finished piece, if I spin it around so it's the right? Oh God, I'm really having trouble with my speech today. I do apologise. So if I spin it the right way around, you'll notice what I've done is, see, I've got these ribbons here coming off the top of the arrow, but you'll notice that the ends of them are down here with the bottom of the arrow. So this is where the artist in you comes out and you look for what's beyond the plate. Because you see, when I line it up, here we go. There we go. So I'll line it back up. The ribbons from the actual design itself doesn't quite reach that. So what I would do is just move my project up, and I would just move it around so I can get the end of these ribbons in, and I'm going to do the exact same for the other side as well. And then it just adds that extra little bit of continuity. You can see where the ends of them ribbons are now. It just ties it all together a little bit nicer, I think. So there we go. So we've got our ribbons in. There we are. So the next thing I want to move on to, rather than boring you, so you don't have to watch me trace out another one, you know how to do that now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you get this embossed sort of ribbon effect, so it looks like it's wrapping around itself. So what I need to do this job is my squishy throw at the wall pink mat. I love this thing. It's perfect for people like me who are just a little bit too heavy-handed sometimes and just don't have that delicate touch. I do not have that delicate touch. So I would highly recommend this mat for everyone. It's perfect for beginners, advanced people alike. You know, no matter who you are, you will get some use out of this mat. So what I'm going to need is my Pergamano 1.5mm ball tool. You'll find the difference between the tools on the end. It'll just say what it is. Can you see? So there we go. I'm going to work on the reverse as you always do with embossing. And if I just bring in my piece here as a reference, what I do to get this sort of swirly pattern here is that I sort of work in, oh, what's the word? Like I do one section and then the opposite on the other section and the opposite on the other section. And what I mean by that is that, let's take a look at this first section here. Now I've embossed it at the very end, but then when I move to the section directly connected to it, next to it, I will emboss in the center, if this makes sense at all. And then the next one, I will go back to what I did at the start and just emboss at the end of the ribbon. And by like alternating where you emboss will give that sort of flowy ribbon effect. So rather than just me explain it to you, let's actually show you what I mean. I don't know if I know what I mean sometimes, but I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing here. So I'm going to start with this bit here, and I'm just going to gently start flicking out on the end here, because this is my first bit of ribbon. So I want my embossing to be on the ends, on the sides. And I'm just going to gently flick out like sort of striking a match, but softer. So softer than striking a match. And you'll see that when you flick your tool like that, you get like a graduated effect. So it's whiter on the ends and a little bit more grey towards the edge. So the next thing I want to do is move on to this next bit. And as I was explaining before, where is it, this bit here? I want to add my embossing in the centre here to make it give the illusion of the flowing ribbon. So I just start flicking out from the middle. I don't want to go too far with my flicking because I've still got the other side of it to do. So I'm just lightly flicking, and then I'm going to turn my work around 180 degrees and I'm going to flick from the same point but the opposite way around. And that's how you get your embossing in the centre. And then for the last part here, I want to go back to what I was doing on the first one, the first part of the ribbon here, which was flicking in from the end. So because it's just a small space there, I'm just going to flick in just a little bit. And there we have it. So you could leave this overnight. The best thing to do with embossing is leave it for 24 hours, let the parchment rest, pull itself back together, and just come back to it the next day. The more layers you add over a period of days, the whiter your white work will be. But just for today's sake, you know, that's where I'm going to leave it at for now. But on my finished card, I think I did this over about 3 days, so it is a lot whiter than what you see here. During your first layer, you're usually aiming for more grey work than white work. So from here you can see that by just alternating where I emboss on the ribbon, it just gives it that twisty effect. So I will just continue doing that all around the ribbon, but for now I'm going to park that and I'm going to show you some colouring, since you know how to do that now. So to do that job, I'm going to bring in my black mat, and I want the hard surface of a black mat from the starter kit. And firstly, I'm going to show you a trick with the Peacock colours. So I'm going to take this really nice, deep, like rich blue. And with Peacock colours, you've got a bullet nib, if you can see, which is a slightly bigger one. And you've also got a very fine nib as well, where you can get into really tight areas. Now, I want to be using the bullet end today, and I'm going to be colouring on the back. Now I use Peacock colours for just the ribbons on this, so I will show you how it comes out on the one that I've just embossed. So for this, I'm literally just going to scribble colour on. And you may be watching this thinking, oh, what are you doing? You're just scribbling all over your lovely white work. What are you doing? Don't worry about it. White work will always prevail. So if you do a bit of like white work embossing on the back, then put some colour on it, the white work will stand out on the front more, as you can see here. So you've still got your lovely shading. You're literally just scribbling in the area just to make sure that's covered. So always remember, white work prevails over colour. Now, next I want to show you how I coloured in the peacock feather. So for that, I use my pergoliners. Now they come in a box of 36. You get your 20 aqua pencils, which are watercolour based, and you get your 16 blendable pencils, which are oil based. And for today, I'm going to be using the water based pencils, and I'm going to be a little bit brave and colour on the front. I was really scared of colouring on the front the first time round. It's quite daunting, you know. On the back it's quite forgiving and you can get away with it, but you know, once you go for it and you have a play, it's a little bit of paper. And the thing is, with water, you can pick it up, you can remove it, you can just take your water brush back to the piece of art and just have a play around with it. You know, it is quite forgiving watercolour, I find. So this is a trick I learned from our Maria. Now, if you're a bit nervous of a brush, which a lot of people can be, I know I definitely am still to this day, even though I've been doing this for about 3 years now, I am still nervous about taking a wet brush to my work. So I'm going to be using the Wink of Stella sparkle pen. And it's basically like a water brush with a really nice like brush nib on the end. And if I just colour on the end, I don't know if you can see a little bit of sparkle. There we go, we can see a little bit of sparkle. So because it's a peacock feather and peacocks are fabulous and beautiful, I do want a little bit of sparkle, which is why I'm colouring on the front. So all I'm going to do is lay down a little bit of colour from the bottom. Now I think I do need a sharpener for this. Make sure your pergoliners are nice and sharp for this job. And you're just going to try your best to avoid the white lines if you can. Don't worry too much. So there we go. I've laid some colour on the outside, and I'm just going to use my Wink of Stella brush just to gently drag it upwards, and you'll get a nice graduated effect. So it won't be, the colour is very strong. These pencils are nice and creamy. The colour is really strong towards the bottom, but then it just gets a little bit more faded towards the top, which is exactly what you're after. So I'm going to do the same with the orange. So sharpen your pencils, Beck. Come on. There we go. And then again, I'm just going to flick from the bottom of the feather. Just slightly bring the colour up. And then what I'm going to do, and if your water brush at the end has got a bit of colour left into it, all you need to do is just scribble it a little bit on a spare piece of parchment and it's clean again, and then I can go into the orange without worrying about contaminating it with the green. So same process as before. I'm just going to slowly drag up this colour. I really like colour, and I think it's one of the more pleasurable, well, everything's pleasurable about parchment, but it's one of my personal favourite things to do. I just find it so relaxing. So there we go. So I'm just going to brush off the orange from there, wipe off the orange. And the next trick I want to show you is that you can take colour directly from your pencil onto your brush. So I'm just picking it up with the end here because I don't want a graduated effect on this next bit. I just want a nice solid blue colour, I think. And then I'm just going to lay this on. There we go. Nice and nice. And then just get rid of my blue on the side here. This is just a scrap bit of parchment. You can use a scrap bit of copy paper, you know, whatever you want to use. So if I pick this up now, it's still a little bit wet at the minute, but when I compare it to the actual piece, I don't know if you can see, it's just a little bit of sparkle It's very subtle, it's very nice. So when that dries completely, this will be as subtle and as nice as this piece here. So the next stage is I'm going to show you how to get this nice sort of metallic effect on the arrows per se. So what I used for these, you've got choices, you've always got choices. So you've got your Pergamano gel pens here, which come in 6 different colours. I really like these, you know, they've got very fine nib, nice like metallic finish, very pleasurable to use. Alternatively, we've got these pilot markers, which are, they pool a little bit more. They have a more of a shiny finish, but they do pool a bit more. So I wouldn't recommend them for very like small areas on your parchment work. I wouldn't recommend it for fine areas. So because this arrow is so beautiful and fine, as is all of Linda's work, I'm going to be using the Pergamano gel pens today. Now I'm going to get this going. So to get your gel pen going, the best way to do it is just to hold it on the parchment and move it in little circles. And can you see the ink? That's just getting the ink flowing there. So continuing that and being careful of all the different white lines, I'm just gonna start laying down some colour, just being very aware of the embossed lines. Right, okay. Fabulous, I'm happy with that. So now the arrow has got a nice metallic sheen. So there it is. I don't know if you can pick that up. I do like these gel pens, they are great. So the next thing I want to do is move on to some multi-needle tool work. However, I do have to work on the back and front for this, and I just need this project to dry. So go grab yourself a cup of tea, and there'll be a black screen with probably something funny written by Simon, and I'll be back in a jiffy. Right? Mine's white with no sugar and, oh, some shortbread if you've got it. I'll see you in a bit. Hello, welcome back. My project's had a chance to dry now, and I hope you've had a chance to go get yourself a cup of tea or something, just something nice. So before the little black screen with something funny on it, I was going to show you some multi-needle tool work, but also during the break I forgot to emboss the sentiment in the centre, so I'm just going to quickly show you how to do that now. So if you look at the plates, you'll see the sentiment here, stand out, is directly next to each other, so it says stand out. However, I want the out to be moved to under the stand, so we're just going to have a little play around with this. So what I'm going to do, and I don't have to attach my piece of parchment to the work now because I'm just going to quickly emboss it out. So I'm just going to put my stand in. There we go, and rather than continuing onto the out, I'm just going to move it around, have a play. Da 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 da. What I'm going to do as well is I don't want that swirl. So this, again, this is the brilliant thing about Groovi, how modular it is. I'm just going to do the out, and I'm going to stop at the curly T, and I'm not going to add the flourish in. So there we have it. We have our sentiment in, so rather than it reading stand out like it does on the plate, we've moved it around, had a little fiddle, and become our own designers, as we encourage you to do with the Groovi system. So now we're going to move on to some multi-needle tool work. So for this, I'm going to set aside my plates, I'm going to turn my light wave on, and I'm going to need my super foam. Now this is a lovely thick piece of foam. It's 1 centimetre thick, and it's perfect for multi-needle tool work because you can shallow perforate in it, you can deep perforate in it, and it's a really good protective layer for using your light wave. It's translucent, so your light will show through quite strongly. So I'm going to turn this on, and just now my mat just fits really nice on top of there. So to start off with, I'm going to get out my swirl tool. Pergamano swirl tool. So this is what it looks like on the end. It's just a nice swirly piece of tulle. Yeah, say the obvious, Becca. It's a really nice design, and if I just quickly perforate it in some parchment, there we go. This is the pattern that you're going to get from it. You see here? You can use it for designs on the inside, designs on the outside. We're going to focus on the border today. So to do this job, I'm going to need my Groovi guard. Now earlier I showed you how to use this to keep your work flat, but now I'm going to show you what these apertures are for. So I'm going to place my aperture over my outer frame here. And what this does is it just holds the parchment flat whilst I go around and do the multi-needle tool work, because you'll find that, oh, there we go. You'll find that because there's so many needles in the tool, it likes to pull the work up. So just by holding it flat like that, it just ensures that you get nice even holes all the way down. So what I'm doing here is, if I show you the end of the tool, there's these 2 dots on it here, one on either side, and these are strategically placed so you can see what the top of the tool is and what the bottom of the tool is. So this side is showing me that this is the bottom of the swirl. So when I'm moving along my pattern here, I've got that dot facing me, and all I'm doing for now, because I want to emboss in the centre, is shallow perforating. So I'm lightly putting holes in. I'm not going all the way down. The needles get to their fullest, their thickest depth around the centre of the needle. So I'm literally just putting the tips in. So I've got about 2/3 of the way along here. So how do you know that your pattern is going to fit to the very end? Well, unfortunately, you don't. But luckily, Linda Williams taught us a little trick. And what I'm going to do is, on the Pergamano tools, there's always 2 needles or 1 needle, depending what pattern you've got. There's always a couple of needles that are slightly longer than the others, just to give you indicators. So all I'm going to do is lightly just mark the parchment where I would put my swirl if I was to continue down this pattern. And you can see here that my pattern would have went over the edge there. So what I need to do is either bring my swirls a little bit closer, which is what I'm doing, or make them slightly further apart. You will not notice in the final piece if you have not got completely even gaps throughout your multi-needle tool frame. Like, anyone would look at it and think, wow, that's beautiful. They won't notice that you've got an extra millimetre or 2 gap between your swirls. And there's no difficulty turning the corner of this. You simply just twist your parchment around and you just begin the same process all over again. What I tend to do is, to join up the corners, I will perforate with a 2-needle tool. Just freehand perforate just to join it up. You only need to do that a couple of times, and that's how I would turn the corner on this. So next is the embossing. So I'm going to bring my pink mat back, my squishy pink mat, and what I'm going to do is flip my work over to the back now, because I want to emboss. I want to emboss a pattern within, and I'll show you on the final piece what I mean. So you'll see that I've got these like waves, or it looks like sort of like a curled up leaf, or I don't know, it's just it's a nice swirl pattern. Let's go with the name of the tool. It's just a nice swirl pattern. So this is what I want to put in next. So for this job, I'm going to be using my 1.5 Pergamano tool. And all I'm going to do this is I'm just going to move my tool around in small circles. You can see that my speech gets slower when I start doing this, just because I find it so relaxing. So I get the dot, and then I just follow the top of the holes that I've pasted, and I just bring the tool down a bit towards the bottom. And that's how I would get this lovely swirl. Now what I would do is, when I go around the border, and I've done all my embossing, done all my shallow perforating, is I would leave it to rest overnight. This is, again, as I said earlier, it just allows the parchment to relax back into a state where you can add another layer on and just make your work a little bit more white. So I'll just show you one more time. So you're going to make a little ball just in the curve of the swirl here. You're going to follow the shallow needle holes up and around and just slowly bring your tool down, swishing it around. And that's how, let me get my black mat, you get your swirly edge. So let's presume that I've went all the way around, shallow perforated, I've embossed. The next step I want to move on to now is the reperforating. The reason we shallow perforated last time is because we were going to do the embossing. And if you perforate deeply, the holes will be bigger. So when you emboss, there's a chance you can just strain the parchment and like snap the little like connectors between the parchment. It just stresses it out too much. So by using smaller holes, you can see where you're going to do your embossing, but you're not stressing the parchment out to a point where it's going to buckle or snap or damage your artwork. So after you've done your embossing, this is when you want to bring in your one needle fine tool. And what you're going to do, because this way is much easier than trying to replace the multi-needle tool. Some of them have like about 10 needles in them, so it can be quite tricky to line up. So bringing my Groovi guard back in and using this aperture, I'm just going to go around with my one needle fine, and rather than just going in with a tip like I did with the swirl tool, I'm going to go down to about halfway down the needle, as that's where it hits its thickest. And you can see the difference here between these holes that I've just reperforated and these holes that I haven't yet. So you can see how much bigger they get, and they become more uniform as well. So when you go around, you will see that it just smartens it up a lot. Sometimes when I finish the embossing part of multi-needle tool work, I think, oh, I don't like that very much. But when I start opening up the holes, I'm like, oh, actually, this is looking a lot more uniform. This is looking a lot more nice. And I start really appreciating the delicate borders you can get with them. Also, what this does as well is it can prepare your work for Peacock cutting. It's much easier to Peacock cut with larger holes. It's just easier to see where the ends of your blades are going into. So I'll show you what I mean. So I'm bringing in my Pico foam, I'm just resting it on top of my super foam, and all I'm going to do is start Pico cutting out the top of the border here. So weapon of choice, I did explain the difference between all of these snips in a previous video, so please do check that out on our library. And what I'm going to do is just get my snips into two of the holes. I'm going to bring them down, I'm going to twist, and I'm going to snip. And then I'm just following the swirl around, in, down, twist, snip. In, down, twist, snip. In, down, twist, snip. And what's going to happen in a sec is I'm going to get to the end of this swirl and I'm going to have to join it up with the next one. So just go with what you're comfortable with. If you want to join the swirls up here, if you want to cut down one more here and then join it up there, it's entirely up to you. I'm just going to go across here. So in, down, twist, snip. Always twist your work as well. So you know, whatever angle's comfortable for you, because this is it's like a circular tool, so it's not like a square or anything where you've just got a straight line. So do make sure you keep on twisting your work to whatever is comfortable for you. There we go. So I've just finished Pico cutting out these three here, and what I would like to show you is just how to join up the corner. I mentioned it briefly before, but I'll just quickly show you. So I'm going to use my 2-needle bold tool just to go around the corner. You could use your fine. I don't have mine on me today, I'm afraid, so I'm just going to use the bold. So all I'm going to do is find one of the holes from the swirl tool, the last hole that I Pico cut with the swirl tool. I'm just going to get my needle in there, bring it up and perforate, and then I'm going to use another rocking motion. So catch the last hole, bring it up and go down, and you'll see how this will now nicely connect to the next lot of multi-needle tool work. So there we go, that's how you turn the corner. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to chop away Oh, maybe I should Peacock cut that out. That might help, wouldn't it? There we go. Oh dear, I think someone's having a scatty day here. Me. There we go. So I'm just going to cut this bit out. And you can see there that I've got my lovely swirl tool border starting to take shape. So you would do that all the way around to achieve your border. So the last thing I want to show you today is this is another bit of multi-needle tool work. This is 5 in a circle, and if the camera gets in really close, you can see how the circles are just elongated. It's not a circular hole that you would expect from a multi-needle tool. It's like little ovals instead. So this is a trick I learned from Martina Cox, and it just creates these beautiful little flowers just to embellish the background of work. I do really like it. So I'm going to bring my 5 in a circle tool. And because I'm twisting it and I'm not going to do too much embossing in the centre, I'm not going to bother with shallow perforating, embossing, re-perforating. You can if you prefer, but with a twisty technique, it's a little bit more difficult. So all I would do is using my 5 in a circle tool, so that's what the end of it looks like, just there. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to perforate. Oh, do you know what? Groovi guard, that would help a lot. I'm just going to perforate to about halfway down on my tools, and then I'm just going to twist the needle slightly and bring it up. And can you see how that's created lovely long elongated holes just from doing that little twist there? So I'm going to do the same again. So in, a little twist, and up. Now you can elongate the holes further by twisting a little bit more, or you can have it less by twisting a bit less. Can you see there? I twisted a little bit too much there, and I'm almost snapping into the other hole. So just have a play around on a scrap bit of parchment, see what works for you. Just find what looks nice on your work. So I'm going to bring my pink mat in, and now I'm going to go back to the back of my work. And using my, there it is, 1.5mm tool, just going to add little circles to the centre, just being very aware that I have put larger holes in this one, so the parchment won't be as strong. So I'm just being ever so gentle with my embossing, so I just don't break them connectors. And I'll bring in my black mat. And I'll just show you what the finished bit looks like. So you can see there you've got like lovely little like flowers, or it could be snow in the background, whatever you prefer. So I'll give you a quick recap of what we've done today, and then I'll tell you how I've finished the card off. So we've learned how to black mat. We've learned how to use the framework circles to get your little bite-sized pieces of composition. We've learned how to frame that. We've had a look at colouring with Perga colours. We've had a look at colouring with the Wink of Stella and aqua pencils. And we've had a look at embossing, this lovely ribbon pattern, how to add a metallic sheen on the arrow, how to do some multi-needle tool work along the edges and within your circles as well. So all I did to finish this off is obviously Peacock cut out my work, and then I've just used a piece of Indian Summer designer paper in the background and just mounted it onto a white card blank using our gold brads. Now I do have a confession. My lovely brads, they were so well organised and I dropped them all. And look at the state of them now. Look at how mixed they are. So now I just have to, I can't be bothered to go back and resort it, so I just pick how I use. So I just use some gold brads on that, but there you just saw a lovely jumbled range of beautiful brads. So yeah, that's how you finish it off. I do hope that you've enjoyed this project today. If you want more inspiration, our Barbara Gray blogs every single day, so head over to her blog, www.barbaragrayblog.com. If you've liked anything that I've used today, there's an ingredients list just below in the description, and you can get anything from that list from www.claritystamp www.untitled.com. And please, if you like our channel, if you like watching myself, if you like watching Paul, Maria and our wonderful Barbara, please like and subscribe and stay in touch with us. So thank you so much for joining me today. Have a wonderful rest of your day and I'll see you next time. Bye bye now.